You got that intro in my
Already
head
being
now, Ryan.
persecuted.
I already forgot what I was going to say
Yeah,
because
you
I
should
have
do
that
it.
intro in my head.
You should try it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to
Children of all
Sports.
ages.
Welcome to the Hashtag Sports presentation. What the heck was that? What's on in my thing? Oh,
What?
I got highlights on in the background.
I gotta tell you, man, this is a really rough start to the show here. It's almost as rough as the
what do you expect?
quarters 2 and 3 that we saw tonight.
It was bad. The Hashtag Sports presentation of the Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals, where the Buffalo Bills fall 24-18. You're listening to Hashtag or watching Hashtag Sports. You can find all of our socials: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All episodes will be on iTunes and Spotify. Patreon link is also listed, as well as our sponsor, Mr. Rogers Homes. Brochure will be in the description of the video. Gentlemen, it was not pretty. If you're just clicking in now or you're listening to it on the second day, the game was not as close as the score. It was a very rough going for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of injuries, a lot of penalties. There was a ton of laundry on the field. Overall thoughts on the game. I want to start with Ryan and then go to Paul.
I mean, it was bad. The defense was awful. The defense continued to get hurt. The defense continued to have. Keep in mind, they haven't had an interception since the Dolphins game. The defense.
Ooh.
Yep.
And I mean, Christian Benford got benched. That's how poor he was playing. And that's saying something considering how bad the rest of this defense was. And your multi-million-dollar Ferrari investment that you made 2 off seasons ago in Von Miller had an opportunity to get your team the ball back. And he absolutely whiffed on a running back who arguably has lost more than a step at this point. It was just it was a comedy of failure headlined by the ringleader of this shit show circus, Sean McDermott, who again wasted timeouts, bad challenges, again forced a conservative approach on offense, again resulted in an impotent offense, and somehow, some way had his defense playing well enough with the duct tape and Gorilla Glue that he's using on this defense to have them in the football game with an opportunity to play, and then said, oh yeah, 6 minutes left, let's go ahead and call the offense the way we want to call it. I'll turn it over to you. And it's just I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching this team. This team right now is more embarrassing than any team I watched during the drought era, because this team is so immensely talented. They have zero excuse to be this piss poor on the field as they've been this entire season. The best thing that could happen to this franchise right now is that they miss the playoffs. Those are my initial knee-jerk thoughts that I have about this team.
Is it Paul? Is it me, or does he sound like Nick Nolte in Blue Chips? Every time we get ready to play, I just want to throw up. I'm sick of watching this team play.
Well, I can tell you that being a Bills fan does make sense. Hearing Ryan explain our head coach Sean McDermott and the quote unquote impotent offense as to why I keep getting erectile dysfunction ads on my Facebook feed. It's like, oh, you're a Bills fan. Must need
You're
it.
all welcome. You're all welcome.
Yeah, I think when you look at that offense, right, you see a very different style quarterback than what you have in Josh Allen, right? And you saw Burrow throw to windows that weren't open yet when he let go of the ball. And those are tough to defend, right? They're tough to defend. You got corners that are trailing the whole time. I don't necessarily blame them. You lost Terrell Bernard. Can't believe week 2 Paul is believing that matters. And it's a comedy of errors, and you forgot James Cook existed because you're playing from behind the whole time. Like, you want to talk about a game that got off schedule from the word jump. This was it. Like, you got off schedule fast, and I would love to be able to tell you that there's an answer. I just don't know if you got one right now, because the thumbnail says it. The Bills just aren't good enough, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean the talent on the field. That just means they're not good enough right now. They are going to struggle to beat teams that are going to be plus 500 record. And if you look at the rest of your schedule coming up, you're like your next 6 games, good luck, right? Good luck. Buckle up because you've got some nasty games coming through. And if you only walk away winning the NFC games, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be like colossally pissed.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at this team. I always like to take a technical standpoint when we first start looking at it. The Buffalo Bills are 5-4. All 4 games they've lost have been in the AFC. 2 of them in the division. So you're already looking up the hill. And you know, it's so frustrating to watch, like you guys said, a team that is immensely talented. I mean, I kept thinking the whole time tonight, I kept thinking for some reason of the 1995 Dallas Cowboys and Daryl Johnston, one of the PR guys he was talking to after they won the Super Bowl. He goes, "You guys won in spite of the coaching," and that kept circling through my head because what is going on with this team? You, as Ryan put on Twitter earlier tonight, they neutered Josh Allen. Josh Allen is literally afraid to run now. And I don't know how bad
he was your team.
is.
He was your team's leading runner, Mario.
He was
your team's leading rusher today.
Not by choice either. It was attrition. He wanted to get out of it. He didn't want to land on his right shoulder. But we saw the throws tonight. If we want to talk about technicalities again, the guy can only throw fastballs. He didn't have any touch on any pass that he threw today.
Yeah.
And it was because his shoulder is shot. I'm not going to say it's hurting. It is shot. Now, does that mean he can't throw rocket balls? No, it means he can throw rocket balls. He's going to be in freaking pain tomorrow. But all that other stuff combined, you have a team now that came in with such high aspirations, and now you're looking down the barrel of the gun of possibly not even making the playoffs, which a lot of people in the chat are saying that could be a blessing for this team, so actual changes will be made.
But Mario, like, can we just please for a moment talk about the fact that you're going to get the ball back at halftime?
Yes.
You line up for a field goal, and
which was stupid.
And then you just let the half expire, right? Like what the actual hell? You are down 2 touchdowns at that point. You've got a kicker that can kick it from 70 yards out. What in God's name are you doing? Just not trying to put some points on the board, because at that point, right, you would had 8 plays for 16 yards in your last 3 drives. Like, you kept giving the Bengals the ball back at midfield. Do something, right?
Yeah.
Do something. And yet again, you see them walk away from points there, or at least attempting points. And then you come back and you kick a field goal coming out of halftime. Like, you got to put your foot on the gas here. Like,
no, I thought when they had that 3rd down and 9 play at the start of the half, when they were driving down, they had their 4-minute offense. It looked great. It looked like the opening drive of the game. And they're going crazy. What you have to do there is realize the animal that you're looking at in the Bengals. They just dropped 21 points on you in the first half. Your defense was making some stops. Like you said, the ball was getting the Allen interception. You were able to escape without points. You got another defensive stop. You were able to escape without giving them points. But it's not a sustainable model with the injuries that you have, and you're playing with, wish.com linebackers. So that all being said, you're on a 3rd and 9. You do not throw a fade to Gabe Davis with a quarterback that can't throw a fade because of his shoulder.
Yeah, that's not a fade. That wasn't a fade pass.
You're in 4-down territory.
Yeah, let's just be honest. That wasn't a fade.
You're in 4-down territory. You try to get at least half of that yardage back and try to see what you can do on 4th down, because even if you do give them the ball, you swing the field for the rest of the half.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you do.
Ryan, remember not too long ago that this was the team that everybody felt could score from anywhere at any time. I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen that in 20 games in regulation. Like, this used to be a team that could score from anywhere on the field. And now this isn't a team that can score in the red zone. Like, God forbid they get to the red zone. Like, what has happened?
I mean, I think there's a couple things that jump out to me. I think the one is they've made a concerted effort to take away Josh's dynamic playmaking ability. That's his ability to break the pocket. He seems very hesitant to do that until they're late in the game, they're down, and he feels like he needs to go out and make plays. I don't know why they take that dynamic away. But what we see is that results in broken plays. It results in these receivers getting kind of out of their routes, and Gabe Davis thrives in that type of situation because he's not a good route runner. So he's able to kind of look back into the backfield, sees Allen go one way or the other, and he just kind of runs and he can create separation that way. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is, for a reason, they went out and invested in these guys that can take the top off of a defense, right? Trent Sherfield was one that was brought in that way. Deion Hardy was a guy that was brought in because he can take a top off a defense. We've seen Khalil Shakir do it, and they're just not running routes that do that. And when they do run those routes, they saw it. They tried it once with Deontay Hardy, and it was, a decent throw. It was a decent effort, and then it was just like they just never went to it again. They never attempted to go over the top. They never try to set up any play action.
Nope.
It just seems like it's a very, take what they give us type of offense, which is fine in situations, but it's almost like they go into games assuming that the defense isn't going to give them anything over the top, so they just game plan to not try to take anything over the top, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen flashes. We've seen flashes of that dynamic. Anything can happen from anywhere on the field play. I mean, we saw it in, what game was it? It was the Patriots game, where it was like 16 seconds or something left in the game, and Allen takes the shot to Diggs downfield that would have put him in field goal range. And it was like Diggs didn't come up with it, but that was one of those things where it was like, there's plenty of time on this clock, right? We're going to take a shot downfield. We're going to see if we can draw a flag. We're going to see if we can make a play. Josh throws that absolute frozen rope, and Diggs can't come up with it. But those are the types of plays that they're not making. And the defense has kept them in games. There was a stretch where the defense went, I think it was like 6 straight possessions where they didn't allow points by the Bengals, and the Bills scored 3 points in that stretch. And it's like, you can't have that. You absolutely cannot have that. And if you're going to, I echo what Paul said, but I kind of go the other direction. If you're going to punt from the Bengals 38-yard line because you don't want to try a field goal after the intentional grounding penalty, right? They brought the field goal unit out. They picked up the intentional ground, and then like, oh, okay, well, we'll just punt it away because it was a dead ball foul.
Yeah.
But then there was a 10-second runoff, and they started the clock. Why not put the offense out there and let your power arm quarterback throw it 40 yards into the end zone? Like, what's the difference if you're just going to stand there and let the clock run out versus kick a field goal or versus punt it? Like, Bass probably
they weren't prepared,
but it's outdoors. I can see where they didn't want to try it.
Well,
it's another situation where McDermott gets caught with his pants around his ankles. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's caught off guard. He's like, well, what do you mean the clock is running? I didn't know that was part of the rule. It's like, there's a reason that there's people on staff that know this stuff, right? Like, there's a reason that Andy Reid has a guy who tells him when to challenge plays. There's a reason for that, because Andy Reid doesn't want to get caught up in the minutia of, do I challenge this? Not, because he's got bigger shit to worry about during a game. McDermott, for whatever reason, feels the need to control every aspect of this football team, and this is what you sow when you allow. This is what you reap when you allow that type of guy to run an organization. It's just he's too hands in everything, and he's got to take a step back and delegate some things, and it's not happening, and it's not gonna happen because he's not gonna change who he is. If he hasn't done it in 5 seasons, he's not gonna do it in 6.
Yeah, the fact, I think the Buffalo Bills made a concerted effort this offseason with Josh Allen in saying, he's on the same trajectory as Cam Newton was in Carolina, where he's running all over the field, he's throwing the ball all over the place. We have to try to preserve him for the next 10 years, not the next 3, because then, in theory, our jobs depend on it. So what did you do as a staff? You took away his 2 most glaring attributes that he has at the quarterback position, which is his ability to throw the ball 80 yards and be able to run the ball to put fear in defenses. Well, you know what? The reason why you're not seeing those downfield stuff is because they're afraid that, those are longer developing plays. And what happens with longer developing plays, when you have an offensive unit that is just playing together and struggling at times, he's going to get hit. They don't want to have him wide open taking shots back there or taking shots running. So what do? You put the handcuffs on a $250 million car and you don't let it drive. You go 3 miles an hour with it the entire time, which is not what's supposed to happen. And as far as McDermott and his – I'll tell you what, that replay guy that told him to challenge it's getting fired because that's ridiculous. I mean, even if you thought
I
Sherfield
I can guarantee you, Mario, that he does not have a replay guy. I can guarantee you.
He's confirmed
to have a guy delegated.
Incorrect. He's confirmed that they have a system in place for replays, and somebody delegated to do that in prior interview or prior
you know what you should tell
press conferences. So he's got a system.
As a head coach, you say,
well, I mean, I have a system too in terms of keeping my bills in order. Throw the bill on top of the pile and go to the next one. Like, just because I have a system doesn't mean that it's a system that should be working or anyone should be employing.
The fact that they burned a timeout earlier in the third quarter when they couldn't get a play in on an incomplete pass that went to Diggs, which was ridiculous. You had 2 timeouts left. The timeout is more valuable than the challenge at that point. You're moving the ball. They're letting you move the ball because they have a 2-score lead. They don't care.
Well, and the Bengals gave you every opportunity to come back in this game, and they would have no control by burning all 3 timeouts. Right? Yeah. They wasted every timeout, every one of them.
Yeah. I mean, tonight was a Zach Taylor, Sean McDermott trying to see who could coach their team the worst, or maybe whose team could overcome bad coaching, because Zach Taylor was every bit as bad in situational football as Sean McDermott was.
Horrible
tonight. He went for it on 4th and 5 that wound up giving the Bills good field position to try to come back and score, and it was just, you just had that opportunity time in and time again to get back in the game. Your defense gave it to you. The Bengals gave it to you, and you just refused to take it down. Yeah. I mean, to that point where I'm ready to take that poster down.
Yeah. And I mean, Von Miller, where has he been? He literally did not even have a stat line tonight. Like, where has he been? It's like I saw it on Twitter, and I know Ryan.
I mean,
everyone's talking about him stealing paychecks, and MB's in the chat saying it all the time now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less concerned with him stealing the money because the contract is right. I mean, Paul can talk through the contract till he's blue in the face. What I have more of a concern over is I think what this is a microcosm of what McDermott has allowed this to become, which is the inmates run the asylum. Mm-hmm. And for whatever, he's allowing Von Miller to be out there when Von Miller is not being impactful to the football game. And he's taking away snaps from a guy in AJ Epinesa who has been very good. You can argue the second best defensive lineman on this football team behind Leonard Floyd this year. And they're not. I don't understand how you can justify as a defensive head coach, how you can justify putting a guy out there who's clearly not healthy, clearly not making an impact.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And over guys who are playing out their ass in, again, Floyd, Rousseau, Epinesa. They're playing very good football this year. And they're trotting out Von Miller in a third and gotta have it situation. And the Bengals did exactly what they were supposed to do. They went right at him because they could tell all game that he didn't have any juice to it. Mm-hmm. And you'd run at guys like that. And they ran at him, and he whiffed on the tackle in an embarrassing fashion. Yeah. And the game was over. That was it. I mean, that was great play. That was a great audible by Burrow to go right at Miller when he saw the way that the defensive front was lined up.
So you can know that Buffalo is admitting the fact that Vaughn is just not there when you see them moving him to the front side, right? So Vaughn typically has been a guy that they've kept on the weak side, right? They kept on the blind side, and when the moment you see him, they're putting him in on face side. You're like, that's not where he goes, right? Mm-hmm. Like you didn't sign him to put him there, so.
You didn't sign him to play against the right tackles of other teams.
No. And
he did a little bit last year. I remember I saw him over there a little bit.
Yeah, but Mario, this is a necessity thing now.
Yeah,
right? Like it's a necessity thing.
He can't cut off that leg anymore.
No. And is that something that maybe gets better, and improves? I mean, yes, right. That's the idea. That's the thought. Right, that's the thought.
Yeah, I mean, keeping in mind with Von Miller, he's not even a year removed from an ACL tear at the age of 34 years old. Right, like He's not 100%. I don't care what he says. It's not
Mhm.
physically possible to be 100% in the time frame that he's already
No.
come back from football. And at a certain point, the adults have to step in and say, "You're not ready to go. You're an anchor on this defense right now, and not in the good anchor. You're an anchor on this defense. You are
Mhm.
dragging this defense down by taking away snaps with guys who are percent." And 100% of AJ Epinesa is better than whatever percentage of Von Miller that we're seeing right now. And he's not getting on the field because they have to give snaps to Von Miller because you don't go on his podcast and say that the reason they're losing is because he doesn't have enough playing time, right? Like, let's call it what it is. They're afraid of the optics of not playing Von Miller when he says he's healthy. Then the questions come, why isn't Von playing more? Yada, yada. Well, he's not quite hurt. Well, he says he's good. Like, that's a PR nightmare.
Von's ankles have been shit for weeks because he's compensating. That's what happens, right? And today you saw him take some straighter angles, and I don't know if he got 4 yards deep from the line of scrimmage when he was doing that, right? Like, this is a guy that used to be able to dominate on that side of the football, and it's just not there. And again, from a level of expectation, just because he's got a jersey on does not mean he belongs there. And right. You know, it's probably harder now to say, Von, it's not looking good. We're going to make sure you're inactive next game, right? That probably looks worse than just saying, yeah, you're not ready to go. It doesn't matter. You're not ready to go. And you know, Lord knows how long you're going to be out with Bernard now, because you know the NFL concussion protocol is what it is. And like your linebacker group, Joe Mixon ran for 28 yards, and the 4 most important of them came against your highest paid defender. You know, like, come on, right?
Yeah, I think the confusion that comes in is that we've been doing post games 6 years now, Paul. We've had this show for 10.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
we always kind of have our finger on the pulse of, hey, you know, if they just clean this up, they're going to be okay. And then you see a couple weeks later they clean it up and they go on a couple wins, you know, here and there. I think the uncertainty is what's really hurting the Mafia now, because like Ryan said, you have this team that is uber talented, albeit depleted. I mean, how many millions and millions of dollars is on the bench or on IR at the moment? And you're like, what do we do? What happens now? What do the Bills, how do they get out of this? I mean, the one guy that probably should be on the IR that literally can't right now is probably Allen. And the fact is, you know, we as fans always want to assess blame. You know, whose fault is it? Why is this happening? And it starts with 3 people. It starts with McDermott and Dorsey and Allen. Those are the 3 that I look at. And you know, Allen's play is what we could see on the field. He's trying tonight. I think he was better going through some of his progressions. I think sometimes he stayed in the pocket a little too long because that's been coached out of him to run the damn ball. And maybe it's more of self-preservation at this point, that he doesn't want to land on that shoulder and make it worse. So it's going to be something where what's that? Was that right?
I was just gonna. Yeah, you can finish your thought. You finish your thought.
No, go right ahead, because I don't know.
I was just gonna give everybody an update because McDermott's presser is underway. So we did get an update on Christian Benford tweaked his hamstring during the game, which is always good news for a corner to tweak his hamstring. So
soft tissue, baby.
I love what I saw out of Douglas.
Those soft tissue injuries.
I liked what I saw out of Douglas.
But
I
now you're
absolutely
down
loved
to
what I saw out of Dane. Dane played his ass off.
Depending on Dane's injury, don't forget he didn't finish the game.
No,
right?
The first down.
So you know, so you have the very possibility to go into Monday Night Football next week with Rasul Douglas and Josh Norman as your 2 starting corners. So besides that, it seems like, and it reads to me as I'm reading through Twitter, as I do after games, that in Allen's presser, he was asked about the offense. What can you do to be more effective? And he mentioned 2 things that we talked about a lot: up tempo, no huddle.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, seems reasonable that they're better when they're going up tempo and they're going no huddle. And McDermott in his presser, when asked, said we probably should go up tempo a little bit more often. I think we operate better offensively when we do that. And now I'm reading that in the locker room, there were a lot of offensive players who unsolicited offered the fact that they need to run more up-tempo offense. So my question is, who's not allowing them to run up-tempo offense? If the head coach, the offensive teams, the offensive players, and the quarterback are all saying we need to run up-tempo more often,
Somebody's lying.
who's not letting them run up-tempo? Right?
That's right, Mark. Yeah.
Is
I
it
think it's the head
Dorsey?
coach. I think it's
Is
the
it
head coach.
Dorsey? Or
No,
is it McDermott who's
I think it's McDermott.
you know, I think it's McDermott too. And I think it's one of those things where it's just immensely frustrating to watch this team go in the opening drive, go up tempo, go 87 yards and score a touchdown. And then the rest of the first half have 35, 36 yards of offense in the entire rest of the first half. And then they come out in the third quarter to start the third quarter. They go up tempo. They go right down the field, right? Like, this isn't difficult to figure out. It's really not what makes this offense go. So the problem that I'm having is, like, what's the problem? And then they call these like shotgun draw plays to Cook because, again, the coach feels like they have to establish the run for some reason, and it completely kills any momentum that they have going. When, how about you just go out and get a lead, and then you can run the ball to your heart's content. Like, go get a lead. Then you can run the ball until you don't want to run the football anymore. But when you're down 2 scores, running the football doesn't work.
Yeah,
So
I think
you gotta figure out how to get a lead.
Well, in the previous years, right, we looked at the offensive line and said, "Man, that the offensive line could be better." I'll be honest with you, I'm not that pissed about the offensive line right now. I do not think that is an issue.
No, yeah, the least of my worries.
Yeah, which is coming a long way, right? Like, you would think that, having seen what we saw from the offensive line last year, you said, listen, if this offensive line can improve, Buffalo's going to be dangerous. And the offensive line seemingly has improved, and yet things have gotten worse, right? Like, markedly worse. And so much of it is because you don't have discipline getting your receivers to run disciplined routes. You don't have spacing. You don't have decent play design. You don't have a plan, right? Like, every play that's called, there's no reason for that play to be called then, right? No. Like, there's no greater view of what the rest of the game looks like. And it's just frustrating, right? Like, your entire offense today was Stephon Diggs and Dalton Kincaid. They had 18 targets. 18. Like, Khalil Shakur walked away 4 for 4. Like, that's your fucking slot receiver. Like, I don't know if you know how the NFL works, right? But I remember not too long ago that your slot receiver was your most dangerous weapon in your offense, and he gets 4 targets. I know people are going to say, well, Kincaid is technically a slot receiver. No, he is not. When you're in 11 personnel, he's not a slot receiver. So we got to get out of this mindset that things will just get better, because if there's no plan there's no accountability, then what's the difference, right? Like, it's just crazy to me that we continue to watch this team slide closer and closer to a 500 record. And I'll be honest with you, they've losing this many games going into the schedule you're about to go into. Buffalo may walk out after the next 6 games under 500.
Yeah. If they play like this, they will. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 22 targets for those 3 guys. Well, they caught 20 of them first. I mean, because that's kind of a big deal. Number one. Gabe Davis, he was on a milk carton on Twitter. No one's seen him.
Yep.
But here's
for the century against this guy
is the biggest missed opportunity. Gabe Davis is the biggest missed opportunity in they should have packaged him for something at the trade deadline.
Oh yeah.
Cut bait.
Yeah.
People would have lost their minds
with him when they had the opportunity.
Coming
off of the game he had against Tampa to then go and try to move him as part of a deal in doing exactly what the Bears did with Montez Sweat, to just offer him up and be like, hey, take your early crack at trying to get an extension with this guy in the next year. Like, biggest missed opportunity that they had at the trade deadline, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, you look at it this way. I think I got the answer to some of the things that you guys are talking about tonight. And my best guess is the fact that McDermott's the one stirring stirring the Kool-Aid as far as this slow the game down, play complimentary football, and do all this other nonsense. He is worried that what will happen, the thing that happened tonight, having a 36-minute to 22-minute time of possession, having his defense out on the field so much, he's terrified to have that happen with the depleted injuries because he gets even more exposed having his defense on the field that much.
Mm-hmm.
However, the times where they go up tempo is when they hold the ball the longest. It's working in the opposite direction. Usually you think, if you go up tempo, you go 3 and out, my defense is on the field for a while, it's going to suck. Slow the game down, let my defense get some rest, and then let's see what we can do. Well, when he slows the game down, that's when they go 3 and out. When he speeds it up, they have 7-8 play drives. They get it, they swing the field to help their defense, and he's not doing that. And I don't know why it's not that freaking plain to see for him to do that. Let this offense go up tempo, throw the, it's in the comments, MB41, 8 total carries for both running backs. You had those short plays to Cook, 4 for 19. You can add that on to the run plays. You know what I mean? Because that's what those essentially are. He's basically checking to see if a guy's coming. There's nobody coming. They're rushing 3, they're rushing 4. He slips through the line. Allen dumps it to him. He gets a 5-6 yard gain. That's the same as a run, guys. In the NFL, this new NFL that's out, that's the same as a run play. It's an extended handoff. And Allen's finally starting to do that because he doesn't want to take the hits anymore, or else he's been coached out of that. He should have took one more. I mean, Cook should have had another catch on that interception he tried to throw to Davis because Cook was wide open and flat. But that's the discussion for another time. But the point is this.
There were 3 guys on the right side of the field that were all open.
Exactly. He doesn't want the offense to go quick 3 and outs to expose his defense and put him on the field so much. The problem is when you go up tempo, you have a better chance of controlling the clock and controlling the ball than you do if you slow the shit down. That's my opinion on the matter.
I think the more I watch games, the more I see this offense that is predicated on receivers making their own adjustments on routes, the more it exposes Gabe Davis to me, right? Like you had the intentional grounding on a route that he cut off that he had no business cutting off. I'll just be honest with you, right? That pass was beautiful down the sideline. Gabe Davis settles underneath that. That play's gone.
Yeah.
It's just really frustrating because like Gabe Davis beats the corner off the line. Allen underthrows it, but again, was it an underthrow? Because to me, it looked like Allen thought that Gabe was going to stop and check back because he had beat the corner. So it's just frustrating to me that we allow receivers to make their own adjustments because I'll be honest with you, you line a lot of these guys up like Trent Sherfield. What has shown you that he knows how to make route adjustments? Deontay Hardy, what's shown you that? Khalil Shakur, what has shown you that? Like Diggs is the only one that should have that ability to make route adjustments. Outside of that, these guys just give them the play and just run the damn route. Like it's just so frustrating.
We've seen that a couple times, Paul, because first of all, the reason why, and I figured this out the other day when I was watching tape, the reason why you see 2 guys in one spot is because you have too many guys that do have the option.
That's what I mean.
They're both reading it differently.
Yeah.
So if you only have Diggs, when you bring in a Sherfield or you bring in a Hardy, they're not running option routes. They're running what is on paper that is for that certain route, and that's when Allen puts it on them. You can see the timing's nice. The ball's there. It's crisp and a bunch of different things. It's right on him. Diggs is really the only guy, and depending on the maturation of Dalton Kincaid, Diggs is really the only guy you should have running any kind of option routes, and that would probably lessen the amount of guys that didn't Diggs and Davis trip over each other on a route tonight.
And they it was Diggs and Kincaid.
Kincaid.
I mean,
it was Diggs and Kincaid, and they actually completed that pass for a first down.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah. So hashtag Nation and Bills Mafia. If you're listening to this or you're watching it, we're 34 minutes in. We have not mentioned one referee. We're talking simply about this team actually trying to find an identity, what they are on offense and what they are on defense is the team that listen, just stop the bleeding for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What they are on offense is we could be a juggernaut if we get to run an up-tempo offense. They move the ball on everybody when they run up-tempo. Problem is they run it when they're down 14 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and to me, it's unfortunate that I don't think we're ever. No, you're good. I think it's unfortunate that we're never going to really get an answer on who is the reason that they're not running up tempo. Because during McDermott's presser, his comment was kind of like he kind of threw Dorsey under the bus a little bit, where he's like, I don't have an answer for why we're not running up tempo more often. My theory, because it was something that happened, we clearly ran Dable. That didn't run Dable out of town, right? Because Dable was going to get a head coaching job because of the way he handled Allen. But there's clearly no love lost between the two, between Dable and McDermott, and that's been. Drew talks about it on the Rock Power Report. He's obviously has his contact, in Reed on the on the team, and he's not a stranger to saying that there was clearly tension in the building between Dable and McDermott about how the offense was being run. My working theory right now with McDermott is he's throttling down this offense because his biggest fear is that he's going to get into these shootouts and his defense isn't going to be able to perform. And the problem that then arises, you've taken over play calling for this team. This is your defense now. Leslie Frazier's not there to be the fall guy for you if this defense doesn't work out. So what happens if you get into these shootouts with Burrow, with Mahomes, with Hurts, with Herbert, with Tua that you're going to have this year? What happens if these games start winding up 38-35 and you lose, 42-39 and you lose, right? Like, you can't point at Dorsey and say you're the problem. You can't point at Allen and say you're the problem.
I think
part of the reason he's throttling this team down is because he doesn't want his defense to get exposed everything that they're dealing with.
There's not an executive in the NFL who would look at the injuries on this defense and blame McDermott for that. No. So I think now is the trade deadline was your opportunity to push the chips into the table and say, you know what? We're going to have to score 60 every game. We're going to have to go 3 and out over and over again and just pray to score touchdowns and just score touchdowns at a breakneck speed. We're going to lose time of possession, but we're going to try and score 60 points a game. But McDermott will never do that, right? Because that's not the ethos of the coach that he is. The problem here is you have the talent to get it done, right? I don't think you have the vision to get it done. I don't think you have the balls to get it done either, right? Allen is giving you everything he's got. And I know that there's players on the offense doing what's asked of them, right? But at some point, you got to look at your offensive coordinator and he's the meat shield, right?
I mean, they've set that up all season. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And but the McDermott presser saying, I don't understand why we're not doing this on offense. Like that, you're the head coach. You have to understand.
You're supposed to know.
Right. Don't stop being so distracted. Right. And that's what that is. So either get the meat shield out and Ken Dorsey. Like, listen, guys, if Bills fans, the Ravens fired their offensive coordinator and shockingly made the playoffs and won the Super Bowl that year. Like, it has happened before. And if you really feel that is your problem, then pull the trigger. But if your staff isn't good enough and you know it, then this is what's going to happen. And you're just going to tolerate and compensate. And this is going to be your season. So either take play calling duties away from your offensive coordinator going into this crazy group of games because you're probably going to fire him anyway, or don't and continue to make compromise and just watch your offense slowly shrivel, because watching a player like Josh get absolutely handcuffed is frustrating and so demeaning to the player that he is. But the same token, like, we're not scoring from anywhere on the field anymore. So you got to get that out of your heads as an option. This offense is not explosive. Stop believing that it is. And maybe you'll see the games different. Like, I realized week 1, this was not an explosive offense. That's not what they were planning on doing. And watching the games is different for me now than if I still believe that they could score from the 20, right? From their opponent's 20, or from their own 20 rather. Like, the game's different.
Are you saying that because I'm just trying to, if the Bills get in a shootout, the weakest part of the Buffalo Bills team, as far as defensively, is the secondary. That would be exposed, thus exposing McDermott because he's a secondary guy. Well, because if we want to talk about personnel moves, we can go to the defense, talk about personnel moves. Jordan Poyer should not have been signed this offseason. And after watching Rapp,
yeah, totally agree.
He took a step back as well. Rapp took a step back in my eyes a little bit today as well. He missed a couple tackles, but he's not out there consistently. You got to be out there consistently to have the feel for the game. The fact is, Poyer should be the guy that replaced Milano. I will say that and bang the table as much as anyone else wants to freaking listen to it. He should be the guy there because of his speed and because of the tread. He cannot play safety anymore. Some of y'all might not want to hear that. I know Rachel Bush doesn't, but he cannot play safety anymore. You already got the best years out of Jordan Poyer. He's done. Put Rapp back there. Hyde's even losing a step back there. So you need to try to figure out something, what you're going to do with that secondary. You got Douglas. Douglas wasn't there because you had low cornerback numbers. You still have corners in the building. He's there because you want to take the pressure off of Hyde and Poyer because you want to put them in other spots. That's why he's there.
This defense has never been so easy to spread thin. I agree with you, right? Because when they ran 5 wide, right? They put 5 receivers on the field today. You saw Hyde drop into the slot. You saw Hyde drop down, right? Because they're playing 5 wide, and and Joe Burrow's like, that's where I'm going.
I saw Teron Johnson drop into a safety position.
Yeah,
on that one Jamar Chase pass. That Jackson let him go to the second level because he thought
he's supposed to.
He's a nickel guy. He's not supposed to be there. Like, why is Teron Johnson there? Like, that's I asked that. I got nothing back on Twitter, obviously. But I was just like, why is he even there?
That was when Hyde was out, wasn't he? There at that point, Hyde was out at that point.
That's your.
Wasn't he hurt by that point?
Yeah, that's your guy though. No, I don't think Hyde was hurt yet. I think it might have been another drive. They were going.
Yeah,
the same way.
I'd have to go back and watch that because did they drop
the
into
sequence
dime
of plays
at that point? Did they go
the sequence?
Yeah. I mean, because they may have dropped Hyde into the or Poyer into the box, Rapp over top, so you needed another safety, and it was either Teron or Saran Neal, I guess. I mean, what's your other option at safety?
Let's not do that.
If Hyde was out by that point,
I'd put Saran Neal at freaking Sam at this point. I'm so frustrated with this defense and what they've been trying to do. I know they're depleted, but Jesus, you're supposed to be the defensive guru. As Ryan said, this is on you now. There's nobody. There's no shield for you on the defensive side of the ball.
No, and that was a choice. That was a choice.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying retaining Frazier would have been the right thing either. I'm not saying that. However, I will say that having an extra hand sure would allow the head coach to focus on trying to get this offense right, which has never been something he's been good at. Let's just put the cards on the table. No Bills fan has ever said, man, our offense is humming under Sean McDermott, inferring that Sean was the reason the offense was humming. No, that you could never, ever, ever say that about Sean McDermott. Right.
No. And that's literally one of the most frustrating things that happens with when Allen gets compared to other quarterbacks in the AFC. And then you look at who the other quarterbacks in the AFC have as their head coach. You look offense. You know what I mean? He really doesn't have a lot of help. And I'm not making excuses for Allen, but what I'm trying to say is what McDermott needs to do is focus on game management, which is even more difficult to do when you're calling plays on the defense. He struggled with game management when Frazier was there. Now he's just absolutely abysmal at it. I mean, the times they take timeouts, the time when he decides to challenge, the time what he tries to do on certain, things. It's 3rd and 6 and he's got a safety 20 yards back. What are you and they throw a slant underneath it. What the hell are you doing? What? Please explain that to me. Like, I just don't get it.
Well, I mean, Ryan, let me ask you this. So watching the game today, I think it highlights the fact that your wide receiver group is not up to snuff comparatively to the Bengals, right? Because you got some big boys at that wide receiver room, right? Chase looks huge. He got arms that could tie his shoes standing up, right? Tyler Boyd's not small, but Boyd has settled into a great possession receiver role over his time inside the NFL. Yeah. But you look at the Bills and
Boyd's underrated as a receiver.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. But is that why teams take chances on players like Traylon Burks, who is just not great in Tennessee, right? But you look at the physique and you see this, you saw the same thing with Corey Davis, right? You look at that physique and you say, man, that if he figures it out, good luck. That doesn't exist on Buffalo, right? They haven't been interested in getting that real physical wide receiver. They've actively avoided it.
No,
right?
he's on IR.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that the way that Buffalo is approaching their skill positions is very eerily similar to the way that the Aaron Rodgers Packers approach their skill positions, right? Like they've used they picked up Diggs, that's your Devontae Adams, and you use your first round pick on one skill position guy, and that's a tight end, right? Very similar to what the Packers did. From there, you really have just tried to kind of patchwork the rest of this together with guys that were maybe underutilized in previous situations, like a Trent Sherfield, or maybe some guys that you probably overpaid a little bit because they can do a lot of different things, and that's a Deontay Hardy. And again, I think you brought Deontay Hardy in to do what you thought Isaiah McKenzie was going to be able to do last year. And then for whatever reason, you're not working him into the offense in terms of a role. And then Trent Sherfield, it's like, why are you even on this team? Because he's not running significant number of routes. You're not targeting him. You're not using him in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, I think the frustration point lies with the investment that you have in Josh Allen. You've got the most talented quarterback that you've ever had from a franchise perspective. And you went out and you got him Stephon Diggs, which is a great number one option. And then you've asked him to do the rest of it with a bunch of guys, aren't great. And, at a certain point, you've got to look at some of these other teams, right? Like the Philadelphia Eagles, they had Devontae Smith. What'd they do? They traded for A.J. Brown. Like, what a novel idea, right? Like the Dolphins, they had Jalen Waddle. What'd they do? They traded for Tyreek Hill. Like they went out and got another guy. The Cincinnati Bengals,
and gave up significant capital to do that. But they gave up significant capital to do that.
They had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. What'd they do? They went out and drafted Jamar Chase. Like, again, this isn't difficult. If you're going to go offense, go offense. And if you've got a defensive-minded head coach who can make a good defense and that pretend that this defense hasn't been playing above its expectation, given all of its injuries, given the way that they've been dealing with adversity on the defensive side of the football, this defense is playing better than it probably should, right?
Yeah.
If that's what your head coach brings, that's fine, but you need to go load up on the offense, right? You have to go load up on weapons, and you just have to just overwhelm with just talent. And Gabe Davis is your wide receiver too, it's not that ain't it. Like that's not going to get it done in today's NFL. Not when you've got other wide receiver twos that are guys like Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins. Like Gabe Davis wouldn't be a wide receiver 3 in Cincinnati. He would probably fight for wide receiver 3 in Miami, in Philadelphia.
In Houston, he would.
He's not a wide receiver 2. In Houston, he'd be a wide receiver 3 in Houston behind Tank Dell and Nico Collins.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Admittedly, two slot receivers. Right? Yeah. Admittedly, 2 slot receivers.
Right.
Well, so let's get to Sonny. Hello from
but again, you just went out and put up 400 yards of offense today. Yeah. So with those guys. So
Sonny, hello from Alaska. It's time to make a change at offensive coordinator. Our offense is predictable. Tough loss. I think the formations are probably what makes people think the offense is predictable, right? Because it just feels just Josh and shotgun. Like it's just, I think the formations probably speak to that a bit more as far as the way fans can walk away from the feel of the game. Mar, is running the football really an integral part of this offense?
No,
right?
It's a luxury, not a necessity.
Yeah.
You can run the ball with Josh Allen. Like they said, the preservation of Josh Allen is the reason why you have the offense that you see on the field today. I mean, for 5 years, the Buffalo Bills fans, Bills Mafia, #Nation, everyone got to see this dual threat freak show run around. He has the most turnovers since 2018. Well, you take the good with the bad with that because he was winning more games. You guys remember a time when the Buffalo Bills got crucified because they couldn't win close games? It's because they were blowing everybody out. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Thanks Ryan for that one. But it's like I would like to go back to a time where the Buffalo Bills were just a cash register as far as the offense goes. And like I said, Paul, not that they could just score from anywhere on the field. They could have a sustained drive, albeit up tempo, running 8 plays for 4.5 minutes and scoring, putting up 7. When you get in the red zone, I think in today's NFL, when you get in the red zone, it's 4-down territory. I don't care what time of the game it is because teams can score at will. Teams can just drive and grind you down, and that's what they're going to do. This defense is so beat up, albeit McDermott did a lot of great things with it. Today, I mean, you gave up 24 points, but after you looked like they were going to give up 50 after the first half, and only gave up 3 in the second half. So he made his adjustments at halftime. You had an up-tempo offense. You only got 3 possessions in the second half? 4? You fumbled on one of them. You scored a touchdown, and you had a field goal. So
you did punt. So they went field goal, punt, fumble, touchdown, end of game. So 4.
So I mean, if they don't fumble, and you're also talking about a team that had 2 turnovers versus none. So you gave 2 extra possessions back to. Let me look that up just because I want to give everyone else that preview or that breakdown as well. So you punted. They only had 3. They had 6 plays after you punted for 3 minutes. They took 3 minutes more off the clock. You had a fumble, which they ended up taking 5-10, and they ended up kicking a field goal in 12 plays. So you look at that. That's another 8 minutes on the clock. If this game went another 10 minutes, who knows what Buffalo might have done, did. So it's something that's everyone's like very confused about what's going to happen with this offense and this defense and this team. First of all, you got to get an identity, which is silly to say after 9 games in the NFL, and you're 9 games in. Well, what's your identity? You still don't know. You're in trouble.
Yeah, and it's an incumbent coaching staff. Like I understand that Dorsey, this is his, this is his second year as offensive coordinator. Whatever to that, he was on the staff. He was on the staff already, right? Like this is an incumbent coaching staff with an incumbent roster for the most part. And we have to try and figure out who we are. Like, what the hell's going on? And kind of to build on top of that. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. No, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, when the harsh reality of things is that when you have a quarterback in Josh Allen and you have an offense built the way this offense is built, you don't have time for learning curves anymore. Like that whole mindset has to go out the window. You need to bring a guy in. And frankly, Dorsey failed last year. He needed to go. He should have gone at the end of last year. You got 2 other guys on this offense, on this coaching staff that have called plays. You got Mike Shuley, you got Joe Brady. Pick one, get rid of Dorsey, and get one of these guys in here that have done this before. Right, wrong, or indifferent, good, bad, previous track record. Does anyone think that anyone look at Brian Dable and go, oh yeah, that guy, he's a hell of an offensive coordinator when the Bills moved him into that? No, but he was experienced. He knew how to run an offense. He'd done it before. He'd just come off a national championship playing, Alabama, who won with defense. Like, again, Joe Brady, Mike Shula, pick one. They both have play calling experience. And you can't continue to sit back on your laurels and go, well, we'll all grow. We're going to learn. We're going to move on to next season, because before you know it, you're going to have a 32-year-old Josh Allen. And I don't know what that's going to look like, the way that he throws his body around, because now you're 2 seasons in a row that he's dealing with a throwing arm injury. And that's not going to age considerably well as you go.
And Ryan, I can't imagine a world where I see Sean McDermott up 11 points on the opponent's 37-yard line in a 4th and 5. Go for it. That is, we don't take you seriously, right? That seriously was just Zach Taylor saying, we don't take you seriously.
Yep.
Right. No. Yeah, that's right. And, McDermott kicks a field goal there. That's what he does.
He kicks a field goal rate.
Yeah. 10 out of 10.
He's on 37.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times he does that.
Right. 100%. 100%. He just goes to kick the field goal there. Hey, Sonny, thanks again for the donation. All of these super chats going to hashtag 2023 charity. And she says, no trick plays. God, we can talk about that. Totally forgot about that. No trick plays, no good running schemes. We don't have a number 2 receiver. Now I think we do have a number 2 in Kincaid. We need a true number 2 receiver. And, somebody had just mentioned, I talked about the physicality at the wide receiver position and Justin Shorter, who is on IR. Let's be honest, right? No, there's minimal investment there, right? When you talk about what other teams around the NFL have done to improve their receiver core, Justin Shorter's probably not. He's not an immediate return for you,
No.
right? He's not an immediate return. And what in God's name was that? What trick play was that? That wasn't a flea flicker.
Oopie fucking oop.
There we go. It was.
You're the damn dumbest smart kid I know.
Right. So they run that, and you run Kincaid on the go, and you throw it out of bounds. Like, what the hell was that? What the hell was that?
Somebody put on Twitter that Josh Allen is his first 5 years in the NFL. He was Rick Vaughn in Major League One.
Oh yeah, now he's got the masturbator. Now he's still the masturbator.
I gotta think is more of a career, man. Yeah. I don't know what that was. I don't know why you try to pull that off. It was on a first down, which I can't hate on it because it was a first down play, and then you end up getting the first down anyway on that drive. Or was that the drive?
You're down 14 points.
Oh yeah,
right. You're down 14 points. You left points on the board at the end of half. Like and credit to the Bills defense the last 2 games, giving up 3 points and 8 points in the second half of games. Like, kudos to the Bills defense, because these games could have been way worse than they have been. But you gave up 3 points and 8 points in the last 2 games. So the second half defense, they're doing their job, right? Yes. It is solely on the offense. And I think we're banging the drum on the offense and the coaching. And I think, folks might be saying, guys, it's time to get off the offense. No, it's not. The defense is literally doing all they can. This is maximum capacity for them. It's not going to get better than this. And we talked about it the first 3 weeks, talking about how this defense was generating so many turnovers. And, I wonder what that's going to look like once it dries up. Well, look around you. We're in the desert. This is what the desert of turnovers looks like, where there's not a turnover to be found. And this is the reality you're going to have to live with for the rest of the season. This team is not going to generate turnovers.
Tis the season, Paul. Tis the season, so I'll say it. Look around you. We're at the 7th circle of hell. Right? Like, yeah, that's where this team is. Yeah. That's where this team is right now, defensively. And your best shot to get better defensively was Milano coming back before the playoffs. Like, that's what you were holding out hope for. The Linval-Joseph move, good move, I think, at the right time. The Rasul Douglas move, good move, right time. But those moves were made in hopes that your defense would be shored up by come playoff time.
Right.
Now there's that you really need to ask yourself, are you going to be around come playoff time? Because you're sitting 9th in the conference right now in terms of playoff seeding. You've got your 2 and 5 in conference play.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad news.
Not great for the tiebreaker. You just lost to a team going to be fighting for a wild card spot in Cincinnati because they're not catching Baltimore. That Baltimore team's that's a good football team.
That team looks like in the front runner right now.
So you just lost a head-to-head, right? You lost a head-to-head. You've already dropped a game to another team that potentially could be fighting for a head-to-head in the Jets. You play the Chiefs, which that's not going to end well at all.
Oh man, if the Jets win tomorrow, good Lord.
I mean, you can go through the schedule, and I know we did it preseason, but you could go through the schedule. And do you guys see 5 wins in these next 8 games? You're going to take 10 wins to get into the playoffs.
Minimum.
The AFC. There's a lot of good football teams in the AFC.
Well, especially when the AFC North is
over some of those wild card teams.
Well, and the entire AFC North is above 500. Like, I don't know about you, but we're at the halfway point, and the Bills got teams in the rear view that are, they're gaining speed, and
teams are getting better, right?
Yeah, you look at
Cincinnati is getting better than where they were earlier in the season. You can argue Baltimore is better than they were at the beginning of the season. The Bills are getting worse. Like this Buffalo Bills team is worse than they were 3 weeks ago. And I don't know that there's anybody who would argue that at this point.
I thought 3 weeks ago was
offensively,
ground zero. I really thought 3 weeks ago was ground zero. I honestly did.
That was the Jags game, right? That
Yeah,
was the
I thought it
Jags
was
game.
ground
Everybody
zero.
looked at the Jags game and went, "Oh, this is the worst that they're going to play all year. It's the jet lag. It's yada yada." They went out or later than they should have. They'll get back into on the home turf and they'll be fine. And then the Giants game happened, and then the Patriots game happened, and then Tampa happened,
and then you
like,
almost
okay, well,
lost the
when's
Tampa
the get
game.
right game, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you almost lost
I
to
talked
Tampa.
about this when I joined Drew on his show before the Tampa game, and I said, old Bills teams of 2-3 years ago, we'd be talking about this Tampa team as a get right game, right? That was the terminology that you would use. We weren't talking about that being a get right game. We were talking about that being what was what you got type of game. And the team came out, played flat, didn't play great, squeaked out a win, probably should have lost, like didn't really play well when it mattered. Like they dominated the game for the most, and they almost gave it away at the end. And they've taken that and they've done absolutely nothing with it. And like my kingdom for the 2021 approach to offense, which was just, we're just going to bludgeon everybody to death, right? And peak at the right time, which is when you beat New England in the playoffs by putting up 47 points, right? And then you go into Kansas City and you get into an absolute shootout and lose in heartbreaking fashion. Like my kingdom for that type of offensive approach again. And I mean, there's a very realistic case to be made that was your shot with this Bills team, with the way that this team is approaching things and the way that they're trying to patchwork all of this. That may have been your best shot at getting out of the AFC and getting to the Super Bowl, because these others aren't going away. Like Baltimore is not going to get worse.
I think the thing that bothers me most about this game is you had 10 days to do this.
Yes.
Had a lot of time, man. This is what you waited for, right? And this
was your mini bye, right?
Yeah, that's right.
10 days
and you
to
needed
get ready
this.
For this.
This
is what you tried out there.
Time. Yeah, you needed the time. You had to have it.
Everything they talked about heading into this game, right? Like you had 10 days to prepare. This was a conference opponent. This is a team that you could be fighting playoff seeding wise. You could be fighting for a wild card spot with. It was a 30-point swing on your playoff chances to go out and win this football game. And
your divisional rival lost earlier today. You know what I mean? All that stuff lined up.
You could have gone back into first place in the AFC East, right? And you could, you could have gotten back into the conversation about home field advantage in the playoffs, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you belong there or not. Like you could have been back in that conversation.
Yeah,
now
those conversations are over.
Kansas City with a head-to-head.
Yeah, over.
Those conversations are done. Now you're questioning whether or not you're a better football team than an Aaron Rodgers-less Jets. Like, are they?
Yeah.
Because I don't think they are. I don't think this team is any better than a Zach Wilson led Jets team.
No, that's the problem.
This team is an 8-point favorite against the Broncos at home on Monday Night
That's
Football.
Disgusting.
Like if that's not the biggest indictment in the world, like you should be a 2-touchdown favorite against the Broncos at home on Monday Night Football. Instead, you're an 8-point favorite, and I don't see how you're an 8-point favorite because the Broncos just had their bye, and they beat Kansas City last week. So, like, in what world is the way that this Bills team playing? In what world? Who's picking the Bills to beat the Broncos anymore? I'm not. I didn't pick them at the beginning of the season to beat the Broncos at that point. That was before I thought the Broncos were trash. Like, I'm not picking the Bills to win this football game on Monday.
No, you look at it, too, and with the exception of the 3 blowouts, the Bills are 2-4 in games decided within a touchdown. Now, you lose by 6 to the Jets on a kick return. You lose by 5 to Jacksonville. You beat the Giants by 5. You lose to the Patriots by 4. You beat the Bucks by 6. You lose to the Bengals by 6. If there's any solace to be taken out of this, is those are playoff type scores that you see. You're playing tight games all the time. You would think the situational football would be a lot better of the experience of the guys that are on the field playing in all of these tight games. That's the only solace I take out of this. It's the unfortunate thing is of the final 8 games that the Bills have, you think the 2 gimmies would be the Broncos and the Patriots. Well, you already lost to one of them, and another team just beat the Chiefs. What are you doing? You know what I mean? It's crazy to me, but I mean we've exhausted, I think, a lot of the things that we wanted to chat about tonight. So I wanted to say, to hashtag Nation Bills Mafia, we want to thank you guys for listening tonight or watching if you're on YouTube or if you're on iTunes and Spotify listening to it the next day. As you guys know, you can find all of our stuff: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All of our stuff, like I said, is on iTunes and Spotify. Tonight's show is sponsored by Mr. Rogers Homes. Guys, I think that's the uncertainty for Bills fans and Bills Mafia is the fact that what fixes this? Like, if you got, and no one has like a solid answer. What would fix this? You're in all these tight games and you're losing them. You're losing to teams you have to beat. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. So, Paul, Ryan, what do you guys got for closing this one out?
I mean, oh God, where to start?
I'll go first while Paul
All right.
his thoughts. I've been saying for the last 3 losses that this loss needs to cost someone their job. And I don't care who it is at this point. Someone has to be on the chopping block. And again, whatever you want to think in the chat, whatever you want to think, those people who are watching this, whether it's, if you want to blame it on Dorsey, that's fine. I have no issue if Dorsey's going to be the fall guy, because that's who McDermott's been in his 10 years. He's finding fall guys. But the fact that Dorsey can come out of the first half, of the first drive of the first half, the first drive of the second half, he goes up tempo, he goes fast, the team is good, the offense looks great, the team scores points, and then for whatever reason after that, once he gets off script, everything is throttled down. I find that extremely difficult to believe that that's an offensive coordinator that's doing that actively. Like, Mario, and you know more about this than a lot of people do. From an offensive coordinator standpoint, you're typically not that different from your scripted plays versus your unscripted plays in terms of the plays you're calling. It's just the scripted plays work better because you practice them, right? You practice the script and you run through the game plan and yada yada. For them to do a complete 180 in terms of who they are offensively as an identity from their script to off script play calling, I find that very difficult to believe that that's Dorsey. I really feel like there's McDermott hands in this. So I mean, to make my answer much shorter, someone has to lose their job. It's going to be Dorsey. McDermott needs to figure out who the I guess the next yes man up at the offensive coordinator position is going to be. But until there's some type of a change coming down from Pagula, who's going, I'm paying a lot of money for a quarterback who's not being used, and I want to win football games, which I think you can debate whether or not they care about winning football games as the way that they've handled the Sabres over their tenure. Until there's some type of a wholesale change at the top, and that means McDermott and maybe even Bean, I'm extremely pessimistic about how any upside that this team may have. But at the end of the day, someone has to lose their job over this loss. It's probably taken until the bye week before that happens, but it's going to be too late by then.
So we've seen this from McDermott before, so I don't think Dorsey will lose his job prior to coming out of the booth. We've seen this before, right? Like this has happened in the past where there were problems with the offensive coordinator. Coordinator was on the sideline. Coordinator went up to the booth. Oh, no, that's not working. Coordinator comes out of the booth. It goes back onto the sideline, right? That you'll see an optics change there before Dorsey loses his job, because we've seen McDermott do this in the past, right? So it'll be a change of philosophy before it is a change in personnel, and that's the way that's going to go. Do I think that solves your problem? I mean, your offensive coordinator is also responsible for hiring your staff, but damn well McDermott didn't allow Dorsey to hire his own staff. So again, I think Dorsey does fall into a fall guy, right? He didn't let Dable hire a staff.
He wouldn't have taken Dorsey as the quarterback's coach,
right? That's what I mean. Is and we keep circling around this McDermott's a control freak stuff, but that's the stuff that highlights it. Like offensive coordinators should be able to hire their own staff. McDermott didn't allow Dennison, he didn't allow Dable, and he didn't allow Dorsey to hire their own staff. McDermott and Bean hired the staff for them. And that's not a way to build a cohesive unit. All those guys that are on that staff want Dorsey's job, right? Like they that's what they're there for. They all want that job. So like I don't think things are as buttoned up as they used to be at One Bills Drive, because I remember not that long ago where we didn't hear a peep out of One Bills Drive about shit that was about to happen. But I'm hearing lots of stuff now days before it happens. And why is that? It's because the boat's leaking, right? Why is the boat leaking? It's because it's sinking. So
because you're not winning. That's why.
Yeah, that's right. So, I don't know if firing Dorsey fixes the problem, because again, he didn't hire the staff either, right? And that's an integral part of being a successful coordinator, is being able to build a staff that you can work with, that you can trust. So again, that top down for me, Dorsey's just the fall guy here. So I don't know if that fixes it. I think before Dorsey loses his job, he'd be back on the sideline where he could get yelled at by the coaching staff.
Oh yeah,
and pistol whipped on the sideline. That's what I really would expect.
And if the injuries to Allen and the rhythm is out on the offense, if he does lose that meat shield in Dorsey and the offense still sputters the rest of the year, guess where the focus goes?
Mm-hmm.
It goes on to McDermott. So if this season's already thrown away as it is, he's going to keep Dorsey on the staff till the end of the season, then fire him.
Right.
Like, that's what he'll do. And guys will be lining up to play.
He'll let him leave under.
Yeah. Guys will be lining up to work with Allen.
Whatever.
Yeah, they'll just so we could possibly get a job somewhere. You know what I mean? It's he's taking a leave or something. All right.
Yeah, he's taking a lateral move to be a assistant head coach or something for some team. They'll set that up. He'll go to the Lions or something and be whatever.
Northwest Texas State. All right, that's it for us, guys. For Ryan and Paul, I am Mario. We're Hashtag Sports, and we are out of here.
Thank you, Paul, as well as the rest of the Hashtag Sports crew. It's an honor being a sponsor. Investing in real estate, especially in the Phoenix metro area, may change your financial picture forever. And it's easier than you may think. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and proud of it. Yet I live in the Valley of the Sun, have for decades, and love it. I also humbly run one of the top real estate teams in Arizona. We help others score, as it were, when it comes to buying, selling, renting, and of course, investing in real estate. I've been a multi-million-dollar producer for many years, and the Mr. Rogers Homes Arizona real estate team has earned the top spot at West USA Realty for 10 years plus. Again, thank you, Hashtag Sports, Go Bills, and God bless.